Another Monday, another day hiding in my closet, but today is going to be a very special edition of Live from my closet because I have a friend joining me tonight, not in my closet, but I'm super excited because my friend Andrea Rappaport, also known as the Andrea Rappaport on the gram, hi Colette, is joining me tonight because we decided that we wanted to have, this is super exciting because I feel like I've been alone through all of COVID, like most people in my house, and now I get to be with my friend. Hi.
Hi.
Some of you might recognize us from our Tamron Hall fame because if you have been living under a rock, we've been sharing it over and over again that Andrea and I were just recently featured on the Tamron Hall show for an episode of Porch Wars, where we went head to head, as they say, and competed to spruce up an outdoor area. And we had a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And we wouldn't get to do it live. It would have been better if we got to be together.
You imagine?
No, I can't. They would need a lot of B-roll for that, but that's a whole other story. So this is Andrea. For those of you who are religious, wonderful people who come to this Monday Night Closet sesh, this is a new thing for me to bring people on. So I've been doing it very slowly, but I love Andrea. Andrea is fantastic. She's funny and smart and just an overall good person. And so we chat a lot offline, and we talked about having a little night where we could get together and answer some questions about everything: parenthood, divorce, because Andrea is also on the divorce train, and all that stuff that goes along with it, instead of just having like questions I send out. So you can find her, before I forget to tell everyone, at the Andrea Rappaport on the gram. Find all of her wonderful stuff there. Do you want to give like a little elevator pitch about yourself and who you are and what you do?
Oh, when do I pass up an opportunity for a little elevator pitch, my friend? I live for the so. Hi, hello world of Rachel's Closet. I'm your good friend, Andrea. So my background is in performing. I grew up on stage doing musical theater, and then I went into the comedy world. I did a lot of sketch comedy, musical sketch comedy, a little bit of stand up. And then I stopped working sort of suddenly. I later realized that it was actually a Me Too situation, that it didn't dawn on me until like
After the fact.
15 years later. Hi, Alice. Um, so yeah, and then I got married and had two children, and now I'm getting unmarried, and I'm
I
keeping.
like the term unmarried better than divorced. I feel
Yep.
like it sounds like a much more, I don't want to
Yeah,
say amicable because it doesn't mean it's amicable, but I think it's like a much more modern term that maybe we should start using. I like unmarried better.
yeah, it's like unfollowing somebody,
Right,
right?
right. It's it's not as douchey as saying conscious uncoupling, but it is that the term, right? That's the grand
Yeah, and it is so obnoxious. It's
so
such.
obnoxious. So obnoxious. Um,
Does
so
that
anyway,
feel like their divorce or their separation is better than yours?
well, I mean, she does make $80 vagina scented candles that people are buying. So clearly she's found her people. We are just not them. We are just not them. So this is going to be like a little pilot test for us because we didn't really know what to expect coming into this. We polled for a couple of questions. We got a few solid questions that we feel like is definitely enough for us to kind of have a whole conversation about delayed Me Too professionally.
Not
You
cool.
know, fuck Me Too and all the people involved in it. Not you, the people causing it. I can't even. It makes me sick. So that's a whole nother show. But by the way, if you are on right now and you didn't get a chance to put in a question, we're doing like a Dear Abby. We're doing like a Dear Abby session where you can ask anything you want about child rearing, which we're both clearly experts at,
Mhm.
marriage, relationships, divorce. And Andrea and I, even though both of us have gone through divorce, I am remarried. Andrea has someone. So like we are on to the next chapter of our lives. And so we're very comfortable talking about the stuff that led up to it, where we are now, blending families, all that stuff. Left my husband a year ago yesterday. We're better people not together. Divorce train here too. Whoop, whoop. And I'm not celebrating. I'm not celebrating divorce because it's shitty. Divorce is shitty. But what many people don't realize is that when you go through it and you go through the shit, when you come out the other side and you can actually like breathe and kind of reassess the situation, you do feel relieved and better. And like, even though you know there's going to be stuff that's going to trickle down, you can move on with your life. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. How did you both meet? Alice, I love you. I love how Alice is feeding us questions now. Alice, who you guys should be following too. All of us have done really funny parody videos together. She's MomCom NYC. She is a comedian and hilarious. We met on the gram. We totally met. We met on the gram. Neither one of us catfished the other. Thank God. It was a legit meetup, and we fell hard, and we've stayed in touch ever since and looked for opportunities to do stuff together.
We should note that we've never met
in person. Nope. And that's the weird thing. People who are not in the whole like making a livelihood out of Instagram and using it for whether it's memes or writing or whatever it is, no one can ever really understand the bonds that you make with other women. They think it's so weird. Like my mom has even said to me, you're going to Vegas with people you met online? Like they don't understand, but you do. You form like a community. Yeah, totally.
Well, I for 6 years, together for 12, and I mean we're still technically married, but like 6-ish years.
They're half unmarried. They're in the process of being unmarried.
Unmarried. Was it hard on the kids?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. And we have a question that deals with that. I think that that's the thing too, is so many people feel the pressure to stay together because of their kids. And I get it. I'm sure it crossed your mind. I mean, it's one of those things that you think, am I better off just, right, leaving my body and getting through it for the sake of my kids? And everyone has different beliefs, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. I personally think that two parents who are apart and happy and thriving are better for a child than being in a house filled with tension. And I'm a child of divorce, so I know what it's like to have that tension in a household, even if you're not physically fighting in front of each other. Just that yucky vibe is not good.
And it's funny because I never once thought about staying because of the kids, because I had heard, I feel like you hear that so many times that like it's not a good idea because you're doing children no favors by keeping them in this toxic environment.
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah.
And someone just said, I love this. Someone just said, I've been divorced 10 years now. Online dating has been a nightmare. Should I give up at 59? No, don't give up. I want you to know that I met my husband online, my second and last husband online. But in all fairness, we had a ton of mutual friends that we figured out after the fact. But the thing with online dating is you have to weed through some shit first. You got to get through the crazy weirdos to find your online farming. Don't give up. 59 is the new 49. Do not give up. Okay? All right. Here we go. I'm going to start with our questions. I'm going to read the questions that we got. If anyone has anything to ask and contribute, feel free. I'm going to keep checking comments, but Andrea and I are going to dig into these because there's some good ones. This is from my friend Dina, and she says, how the hell am I supposed to balance the fact that my kid has no siblings, no pets, no in-person access to his friends, and only wants to wait until I'm available to play with him, which is close to never because of work. Obviously, this is only an issue because of COVID, but it still is always on my mind. I feel terrible about it 24/7 and find myself overcompensating when we can spend time together. Is there a better way? I could definitely use some ideas.
I mean, really, like that's like not something where you're gonna have like a one size fits all.
Right.
And I think that's like dependent on like the child's age but I mean, Jesus, don't you feel like everything right now, we've been thrown by the COVID loop?
100%. And I have news for her. I have 2 children. However, I do have one that is not with me full time. And here's the thing. Even when you have multiple children, I don't know if you feel this way, it still sucks in COVID because they don't necessarily want to play with each other. So it's not like they have a built-in playmate. As a matter of fact, you're sometimes refereeing fights. So I think it's one of those things of like the grass is greener sometimes. And I think that in this day and age, there are so many people who are major advocates for the whole one and done movement. Like there's nothing wrong with having an only child if it's by choice. Obviously, if it's not by choice, it's a different story. But I don't know that there's advice that you can. I was like, what just happened? Is that a child or a dog or a cat or what is happening?
You don't have mailing tubes come at you randomly in the middle of the night. Now that's
It like floated. It was
out.
floating through the air.
This is another thing that COVID has brought my life. Oliver, out.
Yeah, no bedtimes, no rules, just like a free for all. It's a free for all.
And I had the kids in the other room, and I said, you cannot come out unless it's an emergency. So out walks my 3-year-old. It's an emergency.
Right, of course it is. He probably needed juice or milk or something. Of course it's an emergency.
Yes.
Wait, what's in the mailing tube though?
Nothing. My bubby is 93, and she's taken up coloring because that's how bored she is right now.
And she sends you her coloring?
Yeah.
That
She
is the
sent
cutest thing I've ever heard.
a giraffe, and then what she calls the blooming guitar, which is a guitar with flowers on it. It's for Steve. Steve is my boyfriend. It's for Steve. I know he likes music. I thought he would like it. If not, whatever. I tried.
Have you gotten her one of those adult coloring books yet with like
Sent her one that says "F-U coronavirus" or something like that, and she hasn't mentioned it, so I don't know if she found it offensive or what. But
that's hilarious.
Whatever. But getting back to the only child thing, I thought about the fact. So Steve and his ex-wife just have the one son, and Ethan is 11 years old. And I've asked so many times about, like, is that so hard, especially right now? Because I see right now that he's suffering, he's lonely, he's sad. But they had such a different outlook on it. They said, we actually think it's great because he's always known how to entertain himself, and he's never needed he's never looked to like someone else to play with if he
had to be self-sufficient. He had to
yeah. And it's so funny because it's also like you don't miss what you never had.
Right. And you know, it's funny because so my best friend growing up was an only child, and so I went on every vacation with her. I was like her person. So I went on her parents would go on like staycations, vacations, and I would go with her as her like playmate. And I think they just made do. She was always allowed to bring a friend, whether it was to a family dinner or out of town or whatever it was. And I think that's a really good thing, which is obviously you can't do during COVID. But I think as long as your only child has a couple of close friends that you can kind of bring with you and bring into the fold, I think it helps. My oldest was an only child for 8 years. I did not have her sister until she was over the age of 8. And I'll tell you that, yes, she talked to Siri a lot, and she had many conversations with Alexa, and she entertained herself, but she turned out great.
I mean, my 2 kids, who are 5 and 3, talk to Alexa all the time. And
right.
They have each other.
Right.
But asking her all sorts of questions. So
I think Dina feels what all of us are feeling right now, no matter how many kids you have, is when you're stuck in the house and you are following, and we're in Florida, which I know your situation is a little bit different, but we're in Florida, which is like the shit show of COVID right now. And so when you're following all of the rules you're supposed to be following, you're not out and about with your kids, it's very hard to entertain them, and other than just being alone with them. And they don't want to be with us all the time either. And so I think that it's so normal, and there's nothing that you can tell someone like that to do with an only child in this situation other than virtual fate. I have a friend who has a son who's not an only child, but his brothers are all older than him from a previous marriage. She does virtual FaceTimes and play dates and things all the time. And that's just like that's what she has right now. So that's what she's doing with him: online basketball lessons, online chess lessons, but like with real people interacting, not like videos. I think that, the more interaction you can tie in, that's all you can do right now.
And also try to have it on a schedule. Because I think that that's something that I know for my kids has obviously gone out the window. And I think that that's something that they'd really, truly miss because of not being in school.
100%.
Okay, guys, at 3:30 on Tuesdays, you're doing a call with your friend, Logan or whomever. Yeah. And, it's just like, just having something that they can look forward to in their minds, or just know that it's happening, I think is important, if at all possible.
And I hate that she feels guilt about it, because I think that regardless of what your family looks like, whether you have one children, 10, or a blended family, your family's your family. And it is
Right.
what it is. And your kids, yes, they're going to see other families that have siblings, but they're going to see other families that are divorced families, or, blended families, or have kids
Right.
of varying age gaps and stuff. And so there's no right or wrong way to have a family. And so you got to kick that guilt out. Like, no more, you can't have guilt.
The one thing that we moms all have a master's degree in is like guilting ourselves. And there was another question that we got that was also all about the mom guilt. Because it's like that is the one thing, like universally, like who beats themselves up more than a mom? You know, like that's all we do. All we do is analyze everything we did that day. Did we do it enough? How could I have done it better? How did I fail my kids today? You know, and it's hard. It's hard.
It is really hard. But listen, we I say a lot lately, you wake up, you get through the day the best you can, and tomorrow is always a new day. You focus on the day. Did your kids eat something? A cupcake? Anything? Did they eat? Did they go to bed at some point? Whatever. If you
I mean, it's like a bad episode of Laugh-In at this point. There's
no, it's real life. It's real
wow.
life. It's real life.
It's like
Listen, people love when hi Kristen, I love you and miss you. People love when Ava, my older one, will bust in, and there's nothing I can do because I'm live, so I'm not going to yell at her and lose my shit, but she'll stand there in the doorway and be like, hey, what's up, and not move, and I can't do anything about it. And she's so much smarter and wittier than me, and then I sit there like fumbling because I'm like, how am I going to move on?
they're judging you, thinking like I could be doing that better.
Oh, she always says to me, if you posted me more, you'd get more likes. And I'm like, okay.
And so the next day, let me find a picture of Ava to post. How did my kids do with distance learning? So my older son actually is going into kindergarten this next year, if that ever happens. So he was finishing his last year of preschool, and it didn't go well.
It's too hard for that age. It's too hard. My little one is 3, and we did distance learning because we were in the midst of preschool also, and she just couldn't sit in front of the screen. It's just they don't understand. It's too much for them.
Big connect, I think that happens. And I mean, we talked about this. There was one day when you and I were having a brainstorming session for one of our song parody videos, and I was lamenting about how like it was so challenging, and you feel like such a loser because you think that all the other parents are not suffering as bad as you are to try to get your child to participate in a 30-minute Zoom session, and you feel horrible, and you feel it's just like it's just a mess.
Everyone is in the same boat, and the ones who are not having a hard time with any parts of it are liars. They're liars and serial killers because it sucks for everyone.
Totally.
All right, let's go to the next question.
Okay.
This is very relevant to us. This is from someone on your page. I'm a divorced mom too. It was a long few years, and I just recently finalized in April via conference call with the judge due to COVID. That's like crazy to me. I know so many people can you imagine getting divorced via Zoom?
I think I told you. I had
yes.
hearing via Zoom, and I mean, I feel like I can probably say this. I'm in this weird place right now where half the things that come out of my mouth, I've never edited in my life. I don't have like a filter. But now I'm thinking like, oh, but can I say this? I'm going to go ahead and say this. But my ex had like, you know how you can have those Zoom backdrops? Like I'm at the beach, but I'm not. Well, this guy that I married has to be the smartest man in the room at all times, right? So in order for him to look real learned, he had a bookcase behind him.
No.
Like he's in his library. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh my God, like you idiot. It's fake. You can tell it's fake because when he moved in front of it, he looked like
the books, right.
Yeah, like I'm like divorcing Michael Jackson. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? It was so distracting. And then at one point, I feel like even the judge was like, who am I talking to?
It's gold. Did you have a background? Did you put a Zoom background up for your?
Oh, and I felt like such a hussy because I was at Steve's house, as if that's like illegal or something. That I'm
Right.
like huddled like in the bathroom, like on the floor, like neutral setting, like and I'm just like staring at the screen, whatever. I mean, there were so many attorneys who were like older attorneys who had their like mic on mute and couldn't figure out how to unmute themselves because they're not quite with the technology. So the judge was like, counsel, can you? There's a button that you need to push, and they're like, hello, hello.
It's like, what's his name from the Muppets? What's that? What's the? I don't even know his name. You know what I'm talking about. You're.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but I get the official, like, we're not done yet, so that hasn't happened via Zoom or whatever. But this whole, like, I just had a situation over the weekend with the police, which is always fun to do, and they said you need to have your parenting agreement, the one that the court handed you, with you at all times. And I said, well, the court never handed me a parenting agreement. Everything
Go to court.
COVID. And then the cops looked at me and they were like, oh, oh, that sucks. I'm like, oh, that's the official response. Cool. Like, and so it's like it's like a free for all.
But who carries a parenting agreement with them at all times? Like, I don't even know where mine is. I think it's like in a file cabinet somewhere in the bottom of like a bin in my garage.
Yeah, so Mazel Tov on that. I think when you're going through the very special situation that I am #blessed enough to go through, I guess it's one of the things I get to do for a while is carry that. But also, I don't know. But I love that I was like, guys, I don't have one that they handed to me. I haven't, like, everything's been emailed. And they're like, oh,
well, that sucks.
Huh. Yeah, well, that sucks.
Have a nice day, lady.
Oh, no, the guy actually said, that sucks. Well, show's over. You can go home now. Was it a show? Did I miss?
Andrea, wherever you are is a show. Where the world is your stage.
I'm telling you, it was not a show. But I'm like, anyway.
All right, so that was my fault. I went on a tangent because I'm just fascinated by divorces happening via Zoom. But anyway, okay, so April, she finalized in April via conference call with the judge due to COVID. Each of us are trying to find a new normal, even though I got a pre-distribution of funds to buy my own place 2 years ago. The back and forth weekly is hard on all of us and causes me so much anxiety. How do you handle not seeing your littles as often as you'd like? So you and I are probably gonna have very similar things, but I'm further along, obviously, in the process than you are. And I remember from the beginning too. And you jump in whenever, but like the beginning sucks. The beginning just sucks because everybody's out of sorts, especially when your kids are little. My daughter was only two and a half when we separated. So to her, it was the new normal, but she was definitely shuffled around. And it just, there's no way to make it, it's not a positive thing. It's a shitty thing because you're uprooting kids, you're changing everyone's lives. And the worst thing, in my opinion, that always made me crazy, and I actually wrote about it when it happened, was people who'd be like, you're so lucky you get a break. You're so lucky that you get time without your kids. Listen, when it's not your choice, it's not a break. Like, to me, a break is when your kids are making you crazy and you call a babysitter because you're like, I need to take a yoga class. I need to do something. A break is not when your kids are physically taken out of your home and go to a different home that was not where they grew up. Like, that's not a break. And so if you are watching this and if you have friends going through divorce, don't say stupid things like that because it's very, very
not helpful.
Ignorant and dismissive. It's just not a break. Number one, that is not a break. Number two, I'd love to tell you it gets easier. It doesn't get easier. You still miss them, but you adjust to it. You kind of like have a mental reset where you're like, all right, she's not here today, whatever it is. And you just kind of adapt to a new normal, but you still miss them. There hasn't been a day in my life, no matter how crazy both of my children make me, where when my older one is at her dad's, that I'm not like, I feel like my family's a little bit incomplete. I feel like me and my husband and our daughter from our marriage are together and we're missing someone. And I feel like that every time she's not here, every single time. I don't do holidays without her. If we have, when we alternate holidays and when it's his year for Thanksgiving, I will not do Thanksgiving on Thursday. We do it on the Saturday because I never want to sit around my table and see my whole family there and everyone celebrating, and there's like an empty void. I can't do it. Everyone handles it differently. That's just how we choose to do it. And my husband, thankfully, is on the same page as me, but it is a very big adjustment for everybody, and it never goes away. You just kind of like go through the motions and you deal with it. And that's all I can say about it. It sucks. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It sucks to be without your kids.
Yeah. It's hard for me to talk about because it's still so, I mean, it's so raw. I got my
Well,
kids.
you're in the beginning of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 9 months in, and yeah, I got my kids back this morning, and we have a set schedule. So I know what day they go, and I know it's the same every week. And I cry probably almost every weekend still at some point. Not the whole weekend, but there are moments where I feel guilty that I'm so sad because I think that, like I'm with my boyfriend whom I adore and love and everything is amazing, and I have moments where I can't snap out of this sad
Yeah.
face. It just, I mean, out of nowhere, it's like it hurts. It's heartbreaking.
It's unnatural. It's unnatural to be without your kids.
Way to phrase to describe it. And like for me, like I dropped my kids off at their dad's, and there's something awful about like driving your kids over and they don't want to go. Even though like I'm not saying that they don't want to be with their father, they do. It's just the
No, but
transition.
they like the stability of not having to
Yeah,
bounce
yeah,
back.
yeah. And so it's hard, and then you're like forcing them out of a car, and you get back in the car, and my ex and I aren't allowed to speak to each other. So it's an awkward transition, and then you get back in the car, and it is like almost every single time I drop them off, there's like that lump in my throat, and my eyes are like hot and burning, and I almost always have to call somebody like immediately to distract myself because I get so tired of like crying every time because you're like, fuck, Andrea, this happens every week. Like you should be better at this by now, but you're not. It's not.
Well, listen, they're your babies. They're your babies, and it's like you know that a couple days will pass, you'll get them back, and it's like it's just one of those things. But they're so much more resilient than we are, and even if kids go to therapy, which I think is amazing when you're going through a divorce or anything to help them cope, they are they bounce back so much better than we do, as long as we keep the lines of communication open and we show them support and make them feel comfortable. Like I always feel like when my older one is here, not that I want to be like the fun house because I have to discipline and I have to do that stuff, but I try and soak up every second, no matter how crazy the day makes me, because I don't want her to ever leave here and be like, I want her, not that I want her to like not want to leave, but like I want her to leave here with like with good juju. I want her to leave here and be like in good mood, upbeat, had a great day, and then like start her next chapter of being her dad's that way, and then go back and forth that way. It's hard, and it's especially hard when you can't control what's going on at the other house. That is real. It's very hard to co-parent with someone when you're not only living in different houses, but you maybe have different philosophies, or you just, you're not married any longer to sit in a house and work things out. You just have to trust that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You have zero control. That's a really hard part, I think, about not having your kids too, is that they're with someone else and you are not there.
It is very hard, and especially when they are younger, because when they're younger, you have so much control over every single facet of their day.
Yep.
Not knowing, like, I don't know what they had for dinner. I don't know if they, like if like you get your child back and he has got cuts on his knees, probably just from falling off a bike or whatever.
Right, but you weren't there. You weren't there.
You don't know. Like it's not seeing them as soon as they wake up, not tucking them into bed, all those things. And like you said before, it's harder for us than it is on them, which
Right.
is, thank God. But yeah, it's not easy. But I will say, Rachel, I feel like what you just said about making sure that she has a great time every time she's with you, I feel like that's a lot of weight on your shoulders.
It is. Listen, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes I lose my shit.
Not realistic.
No, it's not realistic. But I just, again, it's the self-imposed mom guilt. It's the mom guilt of putting it on, of making sure that your kids are happy, looked after, they have everything they need. But it feels so much more exacerbated when you have your kid for chunks of time and then they go somewhere else and you know they're coming back. But it's, you know, and it's so funny. I think about it. We were talking about this yesterday because she now asks questions all the time. And she was like, how old was I when you and daddy got divorced? And I said, you were like 2.5. Well, she's 11 now. She's officially been in a home with me and Jason being married longer than she ever was with me and her father. And that's such a crazy concept for me to even wrap my head around, because I was with her dad for 18 years. I was with him for a long time before we had, you know, we met in college. We were really, really young. So when I think about the fact that she has been in this household and in her dad's household separately for longer than she was even with us as a couple, in a weird way, it brings me a little bit of comfort, because I feel like she didn't have all, like, you know, 18 years of like building a family together and then it was, the rug was pulled out from underneath her. Like, maybe it's my own coping mechanism, but I kind of am like, okay, well, she had like a little taste, and then that was it when she was young enough to not even know what was going on. And now this is so normal to her, even though she'd love to not bounce back and forth. But it's a crazy concept after going through the ringer in anything like a divorce, to sit back and think about that my normal now has been going on longer than that in her life. It's crazy to me to think about it. And you'll have the same thing from your end because your kids are so young.
I know. But here, that makes me want to hit fast forward.
I know.
You know, and you can't do that yet. But no, but it's all, you know, and I thought that so many times. And for those, like a tiny bit of backstory of our relationship between us, Rachel was aware a long time ago, before I was probably even aware, that that things were not going to work in my marriage. And then once I told Rachel what was going on, I looked to Rachel as like what my life would look like years from now. And that has been just, I don't even know. I don't want to say a godsend, because that makes me sound like.
No, I think that people come, I truly believe, again, it's going to sound, we sound like cheesy talk show hosts right now, but like, I do think
the Jewish soul.
I think that people come into your life at certain times and there's different things that bind you, and you have these shared experiences, and you and I had so many conversations before you said you were getting divorced, and it's that, and you will get it too, because you have gone public about getting divorced. You'll have people, if you don't already, message you going, how did you know it was time? And strangers or even friends, how did you know it was time? And like, what gave you the courage to leave, and all that stuff. And it breaks my heart when people ask those questions, because I remember that internal struggle, like, oh, should I go? Should I stay? What should I do? But it also, I think, is such a healthy dialogue to ask those questions if you're really feeling that. We actually have one like that I'll get to. But I think that this is part of that. You and I have talked a lot about how there's so much parenting content, there's so much marriage content. And for such a long time, it was so sugar-coated, and all this, like, you know, these perfectly posed lifestyle pictures of families in front of their beautiful fireplace and all this stuff. And that does exist. I have that in my life. You have it in aspects of your life now that you've moved on and all that stuff. But nobody really shines a light on the really messy things. You know, marriage, divorce, infertility, cheating, all these things. And I think it's important for us as women to talk about them so that nobody feels like ashamed and like it's taboo. It's all part of normal life, unfortunately.
Yeah, all part of that fabric, like how we become like well-rounded, empathetic, funny human beings.
I mean, we are hilarious. We
are so funny. We are so funny. No, and I think like that's something that you and I have also talked about, is that funny people come from somewhere, and it's typically a very unfunny place.
Yes.
And humor for a lot of us is our defense, it's our coping mechanism. It's where we feel safe. It's the foot we want to lead with, because we're not always so comfortable saying like, hey guys, want to see my crazy? Because
I just got divorced.
But I think that, and I was actually talking to someone this morning about collaborating with them about talking about my divorce, and they said, oh, we love that you're so funny. And I said, well, here's the thing, like the humor is great because it gives you, it's an icebreaker. It
Right.
allows, it kind of disarms people. You feel comfortable. You see like, okay, this girl's approachable. Like it's funny. Like I want to see what's going on. And then you talk about the stuff that's really there. And I think that that's really, it's something that I think is really cool about you, Rach, is that with with the memes that you put out there, it's easy for people to fall in love and follow your page, right? Because it's
Okay.
visual, it's quick, it's witty humor, it's quick, and then every now and then there's something like so meaty slipped in there and it takes people by surprise. But it's different from a page that's like, follow your hopes and dreams. Follow, follow, you know, I'm like, oh my God, like,
You know what though? It's really funny because when I first started doing all of this, all these people I spoke to, there were all these like rules you were supposed to follow, like the type of content you were supposed to put out. And if you were a meme page, you were a meme page. And if you were a writer, you only put your writing. And I've never really, I mean, when I was little, I was a rule follower, but I think after my divorce and I found my voice, I became a not a rule follower. And I just felt like when you're putting your life out there, like you said, you're very unfiltered, you're very public about the things you talk about. I feel like that means you should be real with all of it, the funny, the not funny, and the humor. Like, listen, there are things that could be really dark. You could talk about, someone asked about it, they should give up dating at 59 because they haven't found someone and they're divorced 10 years. To me, some of the most comedic gold were things that I wrote about dating as a single mother. Like, even though it sounds really, really like, oh God, that sounds like uncomfortable to talk about, it's ridiculous to date as a woman with children. It is ridiculous. And so when you look at all these shitty hands that people are dealt or that they create on their own, and then you can find the humor in it, it does. You're right. It makes it easier to talk about. It makes it a less uncomfortable conversation. It's just completely different. Completely different.
like, and we're very aware that not everybody out there is a comedian. Not everyone's
Sure.
going to turn life experiences into a stand-up routine. But I think that people can find the funny for their own amusement, and if you can, like, look for the funny. The funny will save you.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you go on a date that is cringeworthy and you get in the car and you think, I want to vomit because I am so, that was horrible in every way, there has to be something about that date that you can pull out and say, that should have been in a movie.
Yep.
That's hilarious. And I always encourage people, hold on to that one moment.
Yep.
Hold on to that moment like you are upstream in a river and that is your like raft.
You need it. You got to find, if you can find one thing to laugh at in a traumatic experience, that will carry you through it. It will carry you through it. I believe it.
Yep. Yep.
All right. That is actually a really good segue into our next question, which this woman says her ex is with a 25-year-old. He cheated. How do I not hate her guts forever? My kids love her.
You know, I mean, I don't know, Rachel, if you have a strong opinion about this. About this. Now we don't know whether did he is it that he cheated on her with this 25-year-old?
I'm assuming the way she wrote it that it was with this 25-year-old.
First of all, I don't know the situation, obviously, but we don't even know if this was something that the 25-year-old started. Probably not.
Right.
It does take two to tango naked. And I mean, I think I would hate your husband more than you hate her. Well, she's 25. The fuck does she know about life?
Right. And you know what?
Like, how could she possibly put herself in your shoes? She's not there.
And I think it's human nature, right? Like when a marriage ends and it's not something you wanted, it ends because of infidelity or something that is an external aggressor that ends a relationship and it's not something you choose. It's very hard, I think, to accept it at first because it's not what you wanted. It was forced on you. It was totally forced on you.
Blame.
Right. So you're looking for someone to blame. It's hard to blame the father because you still have to co-parent with him and have a relationship. So you look to the right. But here's what I'm going to say. First of all, moms are territorial as fuck. We are territorial. So it doesn't matter how lovely you are. The minute someone is going to be in your child's life, I don't care what anybody says, there's that tinge of, oh God, it feels a little bit uncomfortable. It just does. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's just a very weird thing, I think, to, especially that first time, to get used to somebody being in your child's life. But I will tell you, on the other side of it, being with a man who accepted my child from the second he met her as if she was his own, but never once stepping on the toes of her father, and doing that dance really well, I immediately understood the importance of rallying behind someone who has your kid's best interest at
Right.
heart. And so I think it's one of those things that you have to kind of take the mature road and be the bigger person, no matter how hard it is, even if you have to fake it till you make it, and just keep telling yourself, my kids love her, my kids love her, my kids love her. And as long as she's being respectful to your role as a mother and not overstepping boundaries and just, you know, playing nice and all that stuff, then you have to talk yourself into the idea that it's one more person to love your kids. And I know that sounds pie in the sky, but you will get there. You just have to talk yourself into it, because your children go through something traumatic with a divorce, and the more people around them to lift them up and love them, as hurtful as it is to think of somebody else in your baby's lives, putting them to bed at night, doing all those things, it sucks. It sucks to think about, but it's another person to love them.
Right. And your children, all of our children, they need a community. They need a community because their homes were not a good place to begin with. I
Right.
don't think their homes were broken because they were never probably whole.
Right.
And that's the way that I look at it now. Um, my children have not yet, like, as far as I know, have not been introduced to anybody else.
You would know. They would tell you, not on purpose to.
I don't know, but I don't think they have. But I'm dancing that, on my end, and it can be, it's a tricky thing to navigate. And even with my boyfriend's son and his mother, like I'm always keeping in mind that, like, to be incredibly respectful of the fact that every time I do something for the son, if I make him something to eat, or I bring something over, drop something off, that there could be another set of eyes and ears on that, thinking like, the fuck is she doing that for?
Right.
So I'm always like sending a text message to her, communicating with her directly when I can, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, how do you feel about this? Like, you're the mom, I am not the mom. I just, and
But I'm sure she appreciates that. I'm sure she appreciates the fact that you.
it's important, I think, for everybody to try really hard to get to the same page, because at the end of all of this is about the children.
Yep.
And
That's it.
and if we are going to all be here to support and love these kids, then it's hard to do that unless we can all communicate and figure out, because the kids know, and especially older kids, they pick up on any type of hostility or
Absolutely.
so I think that you with the 25-year-old are in a really tricky spot, but
And you're allowed to be. You're allowed to honor those feelings if you feel uncomfortable about it. It's normal. Like, you don't have to push those feelings aside
yeah,
and be like, I can't feel this way. Feel it, work through it, and then move on and realize it's another person to show support to your kid.